Hey everybody, how are things? Welcome to the official YouTube channel of Athlone Family Resource Centre. My name is Mark McCormick. I'll be hosting today's conversation, and my guest is Jamie Earl. Jamie, how are things?
Good, Mark. Now, how are you?
Not too bad. It's great to have you here. Our topics we're going to be discussing is we're going to be discussing gambling addiction and gambling addiction support and service. This is a two-part conversation. The second part will take place with Tony O'Reilly, who a lot of people will know, who had a severe gambling addiction, and not only has he recovered, he's helping tens of thousands of people all around the country. As we speak, he's touring, and when he's finished, he's going to come on here on our Athlone Family Resource Centre YouTube channel and have a conversation. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, and when that conversation comes up, you will be able to hear that conversation. But today, we're talking with Jamie, and I suppose, Jamie, first question is, can you talk to us about the service in Athlone?
Yeah, look, it's a free service for either people that are directly affected by gambling or the family and friends of those that are directly affected by it. It's rolled out by the resource centres nationally, and Athlone is one of them that's got funding to provide this service.
When you say the people, the friends and family who are affected by gambling, I mean, that's extremely important because people don't realize that if somebody is addicted to gambling, and it is an addiction, and it's something that I believe is not talked about enough in Ireland, maybe the world. Whereas if you have a mental health issue, you can go and see a professional and talk to them, and everything seems like you might tell a friend or a loved one or perhaps a couple of friends. Whereas addiction is something that isn't talked about too much, and even lesser that's talked about is if somebody's addicted to gambling, the effect that that has on family and friends is detrimental. And actually, marriages have broken up because of that. As you can see with this conversation here, the phone number to ring and also the email is just below there. So you can ring that phone number and you can email at any time. Um, I suppose I had a question that I was going to ask at the end, but I think I'll ask it first of all.
Okay.
If somebody was to, I'll use me as an example. So say I'm addicted to gambling and I want support. Um, And if I make the call, and I do appreciate it to be different for everybody, but if I make the call in general, what does the support look like? How do I get yourself, perhaps if I'm in that loan and I make the call, and what does the support look like? What's the chain of events that happens after that?
Well, once you make that call, it's me that answers. If you email, it's me that responds. That may not be straight away. I may be with someone else doing something else, unable to answer the phone or unable to respond, but I will get back to you. And it is just me. It's not at the moment anyway, a team of people. It's Jamie Earl. That's who you're getting through to. What times are you free? Do you want to do it online or do you want to come in and see me in person? And we'll work out a schedule of what best fits both of us. When am I free? When are you free? And I suppose, as you were saying it, I think I'd like to acknowledge the bravery it takes to make that call. Because, like you said at the start, it is an addiction the same as others, but it's got an extra layer of shame to it. There's a stigma attached to gambling that's not attached to other addictions, and there is heavy stigma around other addictions. But I think gambling has an extra one on top of it. It's not spoken about. It's the least forthcoming of addictions when it comes to people seeking help.
And
And
if I can just add to that is like if you have a mental health issue, it's something that happened to you. Whereas people seem to think if you have a gambling addiction problem that you're doing it to yourself.
mm,
And that is not true. And 20 years ago, I suppose having a mental health issue would have been looked at as perhaps frowned upon, but definitely not talked about. But now everyone's open about it. There's classes in national schools, secondary school, and rightly so, by the way. But I think in the next 5 or 10 years, and particularly with the help of what you're doing, that in the next 5 or 10 years, it'll be talked about as openly as mental health. And it's not something that you're doing to yourself. It's a sickness. It's an addiction, and you're 100% right to bring that up. You were saying that online there as well. So if somebody does this mean that if perhaps somebody is listening to this conversation and they're not from the local area, can they still contact you to do it online, or is it better for them to contact their own family resource centre in their area?
I would say, as a port of call, maybe just contact your own one first. But that doesn't mean I'm close to it. If you see me and you think, you know what, I like that guy, I feel comfortable with that guy, that's a great start. I can work with you online. There's actually a WhatsApp group between all the different therapists in all the different resource centres. They would, oh, I have too many clients on at the minute. I have a conflict of interest. Because it could be, well, say again, if I use you as an example, I'm supporting you, but maybe your partner, your parents, your siblings, your best friend needs support around that as well. But I, as a conflict of interest, wouldn't be able to see them. I could reach out and say, guys, I wouldn't give any information other than I have a conflict of interest case. Can I pass on? Can anyone who has the availability and can I pass this person's details? Can I pass your details onto them and allow them to make contact? So it is open for everyone. I suppose, strictly speaking, maybe it will be best just to see in your area, is that support there? If it's not for whatever reason, absolutely, because the world is digital now anyway. Me and you are doing this digitally as an example, so and it would work the same way, and it would be bound by all the same confidentiality and GDPR regulations as if you were meeting me face to face would be.
Yeah, like I think I think it's fantastic that it's the person who's it affects, I suppose, primary and then also the family and friends, because when you're trying to recover, it's very hard to recover on your own, no matter what your sickness is or what the ailment is. It's better to have support of friends and family. Um, but with gambling, friends and family, of course, wouldn't know the statistics. They wouldn't know that it's something that's happening to you as opposed to something that you're doing yourself. Because I would have seen it in my time. Look, I'm a man of the world, the same as everyone else listening to this, and I would see people down, having a few pints, gambling, or maybe going away somewhere quiet and gambling on their phone, and they don't even tell their best friends. And this is happening non-stop, all of the time. And sometimes it's the thrill of the win, but a lot of times then it's also trying to win back the money that you lose, and what you inevitably end up doing is digging the grave even deeper that you can't get out of. And I think it's important that a family and friends understand that, their involvement, if the person wants them to be involved, but their involvement in trying to get the person better, is 100% needed as far as I'm concerned. Would you agree with that?
No, I would absolutely. And again, there's many different facets to it. Because even oftentimes when people are trying to withdraw from gambling, maybe that was their life. Maybe that was their social outlet. Maybe going to the bookies and being with all the lads, that was the only place they had to connect with other people. So that's another layer to it. It's not just the addiction, it's the withdrawing from their social circles. So that support from people that aren't in that world is crucial. And again, as part of actually the service, there is a group ran nationally online Monday nights where you can come in and it would be you and other people struggling with the effects of gambling, and it'd be facilitated by a professional. I think Tony actually is doing some of them as well, and then it'll be transition into there's 3 or 4 therapists that will rotate that as well. So that support is also there for people that need a little bit extra outside. But yeah, the social thing, just that came to mind when you were saying that. That's another thing, and that's where the support would really kick in. Because okay, yeah, you stop gambling, you work on it, but now what do I do? I miss my friends, but if I go see my friends, I'm in a bookies, I'm in a casino, I'm whatever it may be, whatever your addiction is.
Yeah, I actually didn't think of that, to be honest. That's an excellent thing to bring up. It's an excellent answer. If it was alcohol or drugs, perhaps, if somebody was trying to get off drugs, you'd say, well, look, you're going to have to try to get off drugs. The person's trying their best. They would know automatically not to go to a house party with their friends or acquaintances that was doing drugs. But gambling's kind of different, it's not something you see where like the person is out of it or they're waking up at 4 o'clock in the day because they're hungover.
Mm.
And oftentimes, people that gamble and are addicted to gambling live a normal life. They have a 9 to 5 job. A lot of times they have family, and sometimes it's harder to tell that they have a problem until it's too late. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, look, I suppose there's no input of a foreign body into your body. You're not putting alcohol inside you. You're not putting drugs inside you. There's no physical condition. There's no health conditions very prominent. Yes, it can depression, anxiety, very poor mental health, suicidal ideation and self-harm can come into gambling. But at the end of the day, someone's drunk, they're drunk. Someone's on drugs, that they're under the influence. Someone that's gambling, you don't know. They could be on, oh, I'm just chatting to my cousin on WhatsApp, but they're not. They're placing bets, and you just don't know that.
So if somebody is recovering from gambling addiction, like what are the kind of steps that they need to take? Like for me, like I would imagine, and if I'm wrong, tell me because you know, is like it's the buzz of the gamble, it's the excitement of perhaps getting a bet up. You mentioned about being around your friends and everyone kind of patting you on the back when you get a good bet up. It kind of goes one step deeper than where you're doing it on your own. Sometimes people are doing it at nighttime on a different continent just to get a bet on. Like, what are some of the steps that people can take and would take when they contact you to perhaps stop gambling or to fight the addiction? What does that look like?
Look, again, and I suppose that's different for everyone. No, there's various reasons why people become problem gamblers or gambling addicts. Whereas, some people, and I know from personal experience, you're taught, like you think, I'm due to win. I'm due this now. I have it figured out. I have some inside information here. And that thought's not reality. You don't. You do not have any inside information. If you're against the bookies, you're against teams of analysts, statisticians, mathematicians. For one person to think that, well, I can take this on and win. Even as I go back to my own personal experience where one night I was on roulette and I was just losing and losing. And I was sitting there and I can feel it now talking. I'm sweating. I've all these papers around me and I'm writing down all the roulette numbers that have came out. And I'm looking like, oh, no even red has came in the last 50 numbers. It has to be even red. It just has to be. Not you can't tell me different. Telling this story now, there's still that part of me that believes, of course it has to be. But that's not reality. That wheel doesn't know. That wheel is just it just spins and lands. But you can fall into that trap and then you just can keep, well, I'm going to keep chasing that now. I want to do that because I know something that the wheel doesn't, and I'm eventually going to win. And I suppose someone presenting with thought distortions, you might work around the thoughts. Well, is that really true? Or what evidence can you have to support that? How much money have you won gambling? What's it adding to your life? And some people are able to bring that approach. That's a CBT, a cognitive behavioral therapy approach to it. And there'd be different pathways people that would come into it, and that'd be a fairly common one. But you would have other ones that people are maybe from big life experiences, trauma, that the addiction is actually it's masking that trauma in some way. It's that trauma that now drives the addiction. That whatever you whatever you were missing because of that this is hitting that spot now. This is that pleasure zone or whatever's making you feel good. But it's actually the trauma that's driven you to it. It's not necessarily a thought thing. I suppose then you'd be doing kind of deeper work around the trauma, which can be incorporated. This is not a service you come and here's 10 things you do and then you're fixed. There's no such thing. This is a lifelong thing. This is like, it's what works best for the individual. I suppose I gave a long answer, maybe a short one would have been better. Because again, there's other people, there's a third kind of pathway where it's neurological. It's your brain gets addicted to the dopamine, those little hits. I need that, I need that. And well, gambling does that, so I'm going to do it. And maybe you're predisposed to that. And I think we're all more predisposed to gambling in a certain extent, as in it's everywhere now. You watch a soccer game now and count many ads you see. Count many children you see wearing a soccer jersey with Betway or Bet365 and their heroes are on TV telling you that betting is cool and it's glamorous. And maybe there's something quite sinister in all of that as well, because people that are making those adverts, they know the demographic who watches these games. They know. When I was younger, brought to the pub to watch games with your dad. That was it was a it is like it's sports is for families. There is kids there, but yeah, here we are. Here's 50 adverts telling gambling is great. It's fun. It's sexy. It's glamorous. But that's a decision. That someone up there has thought that. Let's market it this way. Again, it to me, there's something quite sinister in all of that. But
Yeah, you're
yeah, look.
talking you're talking nothing but sense there. That's I've spotted that myself. I remember even some of the older folks that's like my own age listening to this will look back at the snooker and you had the Benson and Hedges championships. You
Mm,
know, people having a pint and smoking a cigarette while playing snooker.
mm,
Um, there is so much in sports, there's so much betting involved. You even have some managers coming on telling people to bet. They always say bet responsibly.
mm,
But that's like offering a recovering alcoholic 4 pints and say, don't have any more. Like
mm,
it's not realistic. It's okay to say it, but like you mentioned a couple of times, it doesn't work in reality,
mm,
you know. So when people, as you said, when someone rings the phone number or somebody emails, they get you. So they'll be dealing with you. And you mentioned about your, I don't know, do you want to talk a small bit about how you recovered yourself and how your life has changed since that? And you said it was a lifelong battle. So just talk a small bit about that.
Yeah, look, I suppose for me, what I wouldn't necessarily identify as a gambling addict. I definitely had problems with gambling. I would hit points where I would just, it would cause me a problem. I was always able to stop. I was fortunate in that regard. And again, it is probably a spectrum, one leads to the other. But for me, part of the stopping was it was for me it was a kind of maybe a thought thing. It was like, come on, there's no way you could think that I'm quite a logical person. So I was able to kind of maybe like say to myself, why did you do that? Why did you put X amount on that football game for that reason? And then why did you put double that on the next one to win back what you lost? So someone said to me, "You have what you have. You're not down, you're not up. There's no such thing as down or up. You always have what you have in any given moment. Money." Someone else said to me, "Money you don't lose is money you can spend." So if you win and you lose 500, you still have 200. Yeah, okay. 99% of people that are affected by gambling will go and use that 200 more, probably 100% will go and use that 200 to win, try and get that 500 back. But that 200 can still, get you a night away or whatever it may be. It can still,
100%.
yeah, it can still be used, but it's
100%.
not seen as that.
Yeah.
And I look at it as saying, look, that is still real. And that's what helped me. And again, I won't say I was an addict because I wasn't, but I was immersed in that culture for years. And I did experience problems with it.
I know there's a friend of mine who I'd be fairly close with who was addicted to gambling and now is not. And they said to me that one of the things they noticed the most is that how much they used to think about gambling.
Mm.
So not only were they betting and losing money, sometimes they'd win, but overall the bookies win. End of story. You might click 3 days in a row, but you will lose it all 100%. Nobody beats the bookies ever. And the one thing that stuck out for them was that they realized when they stopped gambling, which they have stopped now, is that like 24/7 they were thinking about it, playing with their children, spending time with their wife,
Yeah.
um, you know,
In the shower
everything,
thinking, oh, you've been like
100%.
in the shower, you're just like, oh, Villa are playing today, and they were great at home last week, and then and it does occupy a lot of space, in
Yeah.
your head.
It's the whole story then. Oh, I did a 5 team accumulator, four came up, I was let down by one goal. And it's a story you can have while you're having a pint and chatting. So look, there's something else I want to bring up here, and the people don't talk about it at all. We even mentioned it a few times here where you're out with the lads and you're chatting and you're putting on a bet and so on and so forth. But women can be and are 100% addicted to gambling also. That's
Mm.
even probably lesser spoken about, whether it be slot machines, it can be horses, it can be anything you want. Obviously this service is open to women as well, of course.
Mhm. Yeah, open. Look, it's open to anyone, and yes, women are affected by it, and that's actually, from what I've read, the fastest growing sector of that it is predominantly male. It just is gambling addiction. It is predominantly male. That doesn't mean women aren't affected because they are, and maybe it looks a little different. I think men are more inclined to be in betting in sports, but just like you said there, I think women are statistically more inclined slot machines, uh, to use gambling as a way to as a mood regulator almost, where it's just like, well, I'm feeling sad, but gambling makes me happy, and I'll do that. And that tends to be a pathway women can take into gambling more often than men. Not saying women don't take it the same way or men don't, but the research would point to that being the truth so far.
Yeah, and it's like a point that you brought up earlier, and you're spot on by the way, where it's a sinister thing, and
Mm.
like an example of that would be, so you're on Facebook, for example, or you're on some social media site. There are other ones, and you like looking at, for instance, you might like looking at trucks, and I might like looking at puppies, and you will seek out those videos or those reels, and the algorithm then will in turn make sure that you see them, and anyone else who likes both of those things, trucks and puppies. But if they're sponsored by a gambling service, the advertisements that will come on before them, or indeed during them, will be an advertisement to bet. And as long as you like watching the thing that you watch, you will always see advertisements. Like, I mean, you won't see advertisements for cocaine,
Yeah.
and the thing about gambling is it's not illegal, I'm not saying that it should be. Some people can go and do a bet here and there and enjoy it. Some people can go and have a pint once or twice a month and enjoy it. Um, but it's you're constantly seeing the thing. It's constantly in your face, 24/7. Everywhere you turn, it knows that now your algorithm is puppies or trucks, and we're sponsoring that, or indeed a subsidiary company of that. And through the back door, you will get an advertisement. It's on football, it's on so many sports. It's just involved in absolutely everything. And I actually know some women who are, find gambling, uh, they're they're uh, they're affected by gambling. It is the likes of slot machines and stuff like that as well, but it's just, I don't know, should there be a regulation put in? I'm not clever enough. I leave that to people far cleverer than I, but just, I suppose, a stupid question. There is no regulations on gambling, is there? Or there's no, like they say, spend wisely. But even in my experience of any time doing it, is you can spend whatever you want. Nobody will say anything until you win. Then you have to show an ID and your last bill and your home address, and but there's no regulation involved. Or is there? If I'm wrong, tell me.
Look, there's regulations as in they promote gambling responsibly, gambling aware. The sites in particular would have self-exclusion. You're allowed self-exclude on the sites. They very much put the onus back on the person. But just as you're talking there, what comes to my mind is, okay, so say alcohol is legal. If you have 10 pints in the pub up the road and you're falling all around the place, by the time you're off your 11th one, that barman, he's mandated or obliged to say, look, you've had enough. That's too much now. You go to a bookies and you keep putting money on that table. They do not tell you that's enough. Never. There's no bookie, there's no quota where they can say, okay, I think you've had enough now. The only time they'll ever tell you it's enough is if you're winning. They'll go into the back and make a phone call. This lad's after winning or she's after winning X amount. It's time to stop that person. If you're in a pub and you have a drinking problem, and they're not going to start offering you, I have a free drink there to try and get you to drink more. Gambling companies will email you, here's a free bet. If they notice your account hasn't been active, you get an email, free €5 bet or €10 put into your account. And now all of a sudden you're using. I'm back on the app again. Because
Also,
until
if you
you
try
find
to
those,
leave a
yeah,
gambling company,
yeah, they then place you
I'll give you
back
a
in.
free bet, 2 free bets. And also, that self-regulation is an absolute nonsense, because you're not going to self-regulate yourself and leave the company, because it's an addiction. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about Johnny who likes to do a bet at the weekend. We're talking about an addiction, both male and female, across the whole spectrum of everything gambling. We're talking about breaking up families, losing lives. That's why I'm so happy that One Family Resource Centre and wider you're doing this. I'm extremely happy also that you are involving friends and family
Mm,
if need be. One of the things that I don't think that we discussed was confidentiality,
mm.
which is important. I'll assume confidentiality is of utmost importance when someone contacts you or indeed someone else.
For me it is it's the very pillar of all counseling, psychotherapy, anything like that. The confidentiality is it's the framework that it's what makes it work essentially. You have to feel free to be able to be honest with someone, even the parts you don't want to be honest about. We all have them. We know things about ourselves, but we want to kind of hide them a little. But to be able to speak with that another person honestly, openly, is crucially important. It's bound by the same. It's bound by the same uh, uh, theories of confidential. I won't even say theories. I'd say codes of ethics. There's certain things as professionals we're mandated, and that's in all talk therapies, all doctors, anyone that works in help and care and professions.
It's like you spoke there about honesty, and
Mm,
like I can nearly envisage somebody who wants to get help and perhaps approaching you, and maybe online, or whether it be online or in person, and kind of telling 60% of the story, but not talking about the big bets or the big losses. And because some of the times a loss isn't just a loss, it's like it's your confirmation money.
mm,
It's your child's confirmation money. It's
mm,
it's money you were supposed to give towards a funeral and said you couldn't do it, but you
mm,
gambled it.
mm.
And there's a lot of, I suppose, personal trauma attached to all of that as well. So it's not as simple as I did a bet and I lost. I kept betting and I lost. So I'm
No.
down loads of money. You're normally there's been people who have stolen money from the workplace, stolen money from friends and family. I suppose, that has happened. And it's just, I think it's one of the nastiest addictions out there because it's hard to see. And whereas if, like we mentioned earlier, if someone's doing cocaine, you can see they're really, really bad, or any other drug for a period of time. Whereas this can be kind of seeping under your skin for a long, long time. You could lose your house, you could lose anything, you could lose millions, you could get in millions in debt, which is what we'll be talking to Tony about when he comes on. That's a fantastic story, by the way. You mentioned that Tony was helping you in some of the talks as well, as part of the Athlone Family Resource Centre.
Yeah, in the start of the academic year, 2024, September, myself and Tony will be going around some of the schools, just doing some talks. I know Tony goes around doing talks anyway. He's part of the weekly meetings, uh, in the period as we're getting the service like really up and running, and he'll be part of that. And we suppose we'll be learning how to facilitate these groups with Tony. Tony not only has the qualifications, he has the lived in expertise, the lived in experience of someone that struggled deeply with gambling. And I suppose even to be in that person's orbit, by osmosis, you're learning there, and look, it's great to have them involved. It's great to have that insight there. And I suppose, like, even go back to just what you were saying there, something quite strong came up for me when you were talking about, you said it's not just, you bet you lose and you chase and that's it, because you're so right there. And when you're talking about like the confirmation money, your kids communion money, the shame attached to that, the shame knowing that you've done that, and at certain part of help us. And I think that's a lot of the work. I think a lot of the work, okay, there is the gambling addiction, but why? What's beneath that now? What's driving it? There's shame. There's so much negative emotion to work. Where'd that shame come from? And you can really kind of go through the layers and uncover, well, what's really driving this to help. I'll never say fix. I don't believe, like, I think people say fix and it's like, okay, the TV is fixed now, it works forever. I think you're constantly managing it. It's just learning to manage it. And that's what it is. For me, as opposed to fixing, it's acceptance. Again, people think acceptance is something like, well, I accept this now and now it all dissolves away. True acceptance for me is, well, I accept this as part of me, and I now have to manage this part of me forever. And I can do that. I can do that with the right supports, and those supports are there. And this is one of them. It's one of many, but this is the one I'm involved in. So this is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's I don't think we can say anything better than that. I think we leave the conversation there. I'll thank Jamie for coming on and having a chat, and I genuinely wish you all the best. I have noticed over the years how gambling has affected people, and I'm delighted that you're doing this. If there's anything I can do on my side with my platform, let me know. Thanks to Athlone Family Resource Centre for giving me the opportunity for this interview and for the one with Tony in a few months' time. And I wish you all the best. Cheers, but thank you.
Thanks, Mark.